Whoa! We're all the way there! Whoa! What a big trade! Seth Jones heading over to the Florida Panthers. That's ridiculous. The Florida Panthers and Chicago Blackhawks 20 minutes ago were working on a trade that would send Seth Jones to the sunny state in Florida. And now we have the details. Frank Seravalli went out there and posted this trade details per sources. To Florida, you've got defenseman Seth Jones. To Chicago, you've got a 2026 first-round pick and goaltender Spencer Knight. The Blackhawks retained $2.5 million on Jones for the next 5 years. The pick slides to 2027 if Florida doesn't have their 2026 first. This show is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Go out there and check out the first link in the description to save some money on your VPN, get some free months, and support this YouTube channel in the process. Let's do a few things. First, is this a good trade? You know what? For the content, for the talking points, for the just a mere fact that we can say that Seth Jones has been traded one more time, I'm going to say, yes, this is a good trade, but 45% of the people disagree. They say, no, it's not a good trade. Let's also do the latest of the Seravalli posts. So this was the first one. The second one is this. Okay. There you go. So Seth Jones and a fourth. Thanks, Seravalli, for tweeting out the trade details before everything goes through. Trade details per sources. The Panthers are receiving Jones and a fourth in exchange for a first and Spencer Knight. The Blackhawks retain 2.5 on Jones for the next 5 seasons, and the pick slides to 2027 if Florida doesn't have 2026. Jones at $8 million is still bad. It's $7 million, Seravalli says. He was making 9.5. This is an interesting reply. Chicago is understandable, but Seth Jones, okay, we're taking a look at some advanced analytics here. I'm not gonna even try to interpret that. Retaining money for 5 seasons. Oh yeah, Bedard is coming home to Vancouver. You know, I would be, quite happy with that. Just saying. I'm going to agree with you. Go Nuck yourself. Let's dive into the player profile. Let's talk about the assets going either way. Chicago, they're sending away Seth Jones, a legit number 1 defenseman for this team. Whether or not he's a number 1 defenseman on another team remains to be seen, because Jones, for the past few years, has been the guy in Chicago. 51 points in his first season, followed up by 2 30-plus point years, and this season he's on pace for 42 points in only 65 games. You can see the game log and the numbers. I mean, 25-minute nights consistently. 25, 25, 23, 25, 23. The guy is a workhorse. Not from Whitehorse, that's Dylan Cousins, but Seth Jones is a total stud of a minutes eater on Chicago, who happens to be pretty good. And for me, I have him in fantasy on multiple teams, so I do kind of question how this trade is going to affect his deployment and his production, whether or not he gets more points because he's playing on a better team, or if he gets fewer points because he's getting fewer minutes. I mean, Florida already won the Stanley Cup last year. They had a Stanley Cup winning D-core with Ekblad, with Forsling, with Nico Mikkola. Lots of guys moving the puck and doing their thing. Seth Jones is going over to a team whose overall play style complements what he is able to do. Whether or not he plays better with limited minutes, or if he's thrusted over there in Florida and he's given ultimate responsibility with every single task because they know he can do it. He already did it in Chicago. That remains to be seen. That, I think, is the biggest question here as to how Florida is going to utilize their defensemen. But ultimately, this is a pretty beefy contract. It's going to be $7 million a year till the end of 2030 that Seth Jones is going to be making that amount of money. He'll be 35 at the end of the deal. I guess you can say that because the salary cap is going up, because we've got all of these situations around the league where contracts are starting to look a little bit better because $100+ million on a salary cap makes it easier to stomach, maybe that's ultimately what convinced Florida to say, okay, Seth Jones is a good enough player. We can trust in him to play 20-plus minutes a night. We don't need him to necessarily because our decor is already solid, but he is a huge addition, quite literally. I mean, he's 6'4", 214. But now, if it's $7 million per year instead of 9.5, that's totally fine. Absolutely worth 7th. Good pickup for Florida. You might be right, Florida does seem to bring out the best of players. See Reinhart, Bennett, Forsling, and Carter Verhaeghe. So ultimately, this is a really good addition for the Florida Panthers. However, you cannot discredit what's coming back the other way. Spencer Knight, buddy. He's gone. A player that was once seen as one of the biggest bets to becoming an elite goaltender in the NHL. In his NHL Draft season, Spencer Knight, 23 years old, 6'3", 192, signed on till the end of next season at $4.5 million a year as a backup goalie in Florida. He's now heading over to Chicago. And when I'm back in Chicago, I feel it. This was a pretty solid season for Spencer Knight so far, a .907 save percentage in 23 games played. He was up and down, back and forth between the NHL and the AHL team. But last year, he was full-on AHL guy. And that was partly because the Florida Panthers had the Stolarz-Bobrovsky situation going on. They didn't need Knight. They gave him another year of development in the AHL, which he utilized decently, I would say. I mean, he's a good goaltender in the National Hockey League now. He doesn't get consistent starts every single game, but when he does play, he is a pretty good streamer in fantasy hockey, and I only know that because I've done it a few times this season. Shutout against the Anaheim Ducks, 9-2-9 in a 2-1 loss against the LA Kings, 8-80 in a loss against Vegas, so that's not great, but these other games, a 9-12, 6-3 win over the Isles, 9-09, 3-2 win over the Blues, and a 9-4-4, 4-1 win over the Predators. Spencer Knight's a solid goalie, but the question is he going to continue being as solid when he's playing behind that Chicago defense? We had been waxing poetic the entire time. Oh, the Chicago Blackhawks, they are kind of a weaker team, and Seth Jones is forced to be the everyman situation guy. But Florida, they've got a bunch of guys that are super strong defensively. They're tough to knock off the puck. They play well. They move their sticks well. They position well. And Spencer Knight is able to get a little bit more breathing room. He's not going to get that when he's playing with Alex Vlasic, as good as Alex Vlasic has been for the Chicago Blackhawks this season. I mean, the decor this year has just been all over the place. Alec Martinez, TJ Brody, Nolan Allen has played a bunch of games, Wyatt Kaiser in here, Ethan Del Maestro, Isaac Phillips even getting some games here and there, and then I think the number one guy now has to be Alex Vlasic, so folks, go out there and pick him up in fantasy because he's going to be getting all the power play minutes now. Connor Bedard, his production may or may not dip depending on what happens because Seth Jones is no longer in the lineup, but I guess they were kind of used to not having Jones in the lineup anyway because he did miss 17 games on the year so far. It's been a rough go for the Chicago Blackhawks, and ultimately getting the goalie of the future is a good thing. I mean, Arvid Soderblom has been kind of decent this year, a .906 save percentage, but his goals against is at a .302. How does that happen? Hey, it's because the defense in front of him doesn't really suppress shots. Same could be said about Peter Mrazek, a .346 goals against and an .890 save percentage this season. Drew Commesso has an .846 save percentage and a .336 goals against average. So even he has a smaller goals against than Peter Mrazek does, which I think goes to show you just the quality of defensive stability the Chicago Blackhawks team has had so far. They're going to get worse, so I would not be surprised if Spencer Knight heads over to Chicago. He's all of a sudden the number one on a team alongside of Mrazek and Soderblom. Maybe they're trying to split the 1-2-3, but Spencer Knight ends up being the highest profiled tier guy. I would not be surprised if these save percentage numbers just start to dip and dip and dip. It's good to have a guy in this age range because obviously building around Connor Bedard, you want players in that 20, 21, 22, 23 age range, but still, Spencer Knight, man, watch out. He's no longer on a Stanley Cup caliber team. He's in Chicago. And you kind of have to feel for the guy a little bit, right? He gets drafted by Florida. He's a number one prospect. He is supposed to be the next best thing for American goalies. And then the season where the Panthers win the Cup, Knight isn't eligible to get his name on the Cup because he was in the AHL the entire time. And now, a lot of people saying, oh, could the Panthers repeat? Could they get back into the finals? Could they do this? Could they do that? Who cares? Spencer Knight's not on the team anymore. He lost his chance at winning a chip this early into his career. Like, I get that he was on the team that made the finals last year, but he only had 21 games in the regular season. So, or last year, 2 seasons ago, excuse me. So, I don't really know what the plan is here for Spencer Knight. You gotta feel gutted for the guy, don't you? So with that in mind, it's a good trade for Florida, bad trade for Spencer Knight. Ultimately, the Blackhawks got rid of a contract they wanted to get rid of, and I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.